Hi everyone, I wanted to welcome you to our third live session for DES 113 Typography. I am your instructor, Shannon McNamara, and we've got quite a bit that we're going to go over today, so I'm going to jump right into it. We're going to go over the discussion for this week. I want to talk a little bit about some typography crimes. I'm going to do a demo of assignment 3. We're also going to talk about some common typography problems. I have a little video in here, so you can watch the video at home. The link will be in the slides, which I will give access to in the announcements, and I will try to also get to a demo of assessment 3. So we've got quite a bit that we want to go over today in the next 2 hours. So hopefully I'll hit everything on my list. Based on the time, I might just jump right into the next demo so that way you guys can see it as opposed to going over some of the reading material that's in the slides, and I'll let you guys look at that yourself. So again, my telephone hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Mountain Time to 4 p.m. Mountain Time. But you can always email me any time of the day. Just note that I am located in the Eastern Standard Time Zone, so you need to be aware of the time zone change when you're trying to reach me. And just a heads up, Hurricane Jose is coming directly at where I live in Massachusetts. So if I happen to lose power or anything, I will try to post an announcement from the Canvas app on my phone, but I just wanted to give everyone a heads up. I think that's supposed to be tomorrow afternoon, night, overnight into Wednesday. I'm not looking forward to this at all. I have an awful tree in my front yard that needs to come down, so I'm super, super nervous about that. But anyways, I just wanted to let you know I'm keeping an eye on the hurricane, and for some reason it just won't go out to sea, but hopefully it'll take a turn and get out of here so it doesn't affect me, especially this week where I have a lot to do this week. All right, so our due dates. All assignments and assessments are due by Saturday at midnight for full credit. Remember, communication is key in this course, so be sure to communicate with me regarding any late work. This will help to save you some missed points. Your week 4 assignments cannot be turned in late, and your original discussion posts are due by Wednesday at midnight. And you also need to respond to 2 of your fellow students' discussion posts. Remember, late discussion posts will not be accepted past the Saturday deadline for the week. And our schedule, our live sessions are Monday from 4 to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and our multi-sessions are from Tuesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So hopefully, like I was saying about that storm, hopefully that won't disrupt me tomorrow. And if it does, again, I will post an announcement just to let you know. The multi-sessions are open for students to come with assignment problems, questions, or if you need some one-on-one tutoring. I hold the live session and the multi-sessions at this time of the week, so that way you will have ample time during the week to get your assignments done. If you do need any outside help, the Student Success Center is open with tutoring available, and there is no appointment necessary. And I'm going to pop over into the course so we can take a look and see what hours Christi has available for this week. So here we go. Christi's hours for this week are as follows. She has hours Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So there's a lot of availability this week between her and I. You pretty much have availability all week long. So 12 to 7 on Wednesday, 12 to 5 on Thursday, 12 to 4 on Friday, and 9 to 4 all day long on Saturday. And all times are Mountain Standard Time. So please, if you can't get in touch with me and you need some one-on-one help, please get in with Christi and get the help that you need. Also, she may be emailing you if you are having some problems with the course to try to check in with you. So if you do hear from her or I, please make sure that you are responding to those emails. And before we hop into the discussion and the assignment and the assessment, looking over what we're doing for this week. In order to be able to participate in this week's discussion, you must have your assignment from last week finished. So if you have not created your assignment yet and that is missing from last week, you cannot take part in the discussion this week because it involves posting your assignment for critique. Also, if you have not finished your assessment for week 2, that means that you cannot work on your assignment for week 3. So all of the work goes together. Week 2 was an important week, and if that work is not done, it's going to hinder you from being able to do your work this week. So I just want to point that out. If you are falling behind, try to see if you can get yourself caught up this week. Don't let it snowball going into week 4, where you're trying to finish week 2, then trying to finish week 3, then trying to complete the assignment for week 4. You know, that's a lot to put on your plate. So try to take care of that, you know, at the beginning of this week. All right. So our discussion for week 3 is a peer review of the invitations. So again, kind of like our discussion for week 2, this discussion will have 3 parts. You need to post a JPEG or PNG of your invitation that you created from assignment 2, and you need to explain why you made the design decisions that you did and ask for any specific input you would like to receive on your design. Number 2, once that post is complete, you need to give suggestions and comments for at least 2 other students' work. And then number 3, you need to consider the feedback that you get and make revisions to improve your design and post the revision below your original submission. So please note, an image of the revision needs to be posted for full credit because we will learn a lot from seeing those before and afters. So again, there are instructions for posting those files correctly, uploading them. If you get an error message that it's too big or you don't have enough space, you may need to clear up some space by deleting older files within that folder. Just make sure that you've saved anything that you uploaded to your computer so you have a copy of it. And remember, be kind but direct and honest. You know, if all you say to people is, hey, this is great, and you don't offer any constructive criticism, that's not really helping someone out. So make sure that you give a good critique. There's actually a video that explores giving a good critique, and I wrote about the sandwich method of critiques in week 2 if you need to refer back to that. And if you receive a comment that you don't agree with, that's okay. It happens to all of us. Remember, it is just one person's opinion, and it's all about the work, not you. So don't take it to heart. Don't take it personally. You know, try to figure out, what can I learn from this? You know, what can I learn to make my design better? So have a real collaboration and conversation this week. This is really going to help you become a better designer. All right, so let's talk about some typography crimes. And I'm going to make this nice and big. So I have 3 examples on the screen. One is a good example, one is bad, and another one is bad. And if you want to type in the chat and let me know what is bad about this example in the middle here. I'll give a couple of seconds. So what is bad is the spacing between the lines. There is way too much space, you know, between these lines of text. So it's, you know, it makes it a little bit more difficult for your eyes to read as opposed to the good example where your eye just flows right back and forth and it's way easier on your eyes. The same can be said about this lower bad example is the line, the spacing between the lines, there's too little spacing between the lines. So again, you know, perfect line spacing really helps with readability in your typography. All right, next we have this. So, is this what your current office space feels like? Technically, this, you know, this would be a bad example for body type. However, when we relate it back to what the poster is trying to convey, this was actually a very clever way to do this, but it is definitely breaking a lot of typography rules. You know, all of the letters are overlapping one another. You know, the kerning is super tight between the letters, but it works for the feel of this poster. So this is a great example of understanding the rules and knowing when to break them. So this example of breaking the rules completely works, but you would not want to see text like this as the headline of a newspaper or as the body copy of a book that you were trying to read. Next, we have using too many fonts is confusing to the reader in typography. So there's just way too many fonts going on this page. You know, and they're all display fonts. Technically, brush script is a script font, but it's not a very well drawn script font. So it's almost along the lines of a display font. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different display fonts on one page. So definitely a typographical nightmare. This one, yes. This one is just kind of funny. Obviously, there should be some separation in the design because I'm sure my baby needs beers and wines. However, you know, I don't want DSS showing up on my doorstep. So, you know, this is when you're kind of laying out text, understanding, you know, separation of different items and why they should be separated. So maybe a better way to separate this. Well, number one, at a store, I don't know why beer and wine is in the baby section anyways, although as a new parent, I can understand it. But, you know, being as it is, you know, I would probably lay this out with baby needs on one side, you know, whatever side of the aisle it's on, and then beer and wines over here. So definite separation with maybe even a bar. Yeah, both are bottles, exactly. Then we have this one. The Fish Factory, fresh and cooked seafood, eat here or take out, homemade soup salads. So obviously this is a kind of weird space that the text needs to fit in. However, this is where using a drop cap or all caps really, you know, hurt your eyes as far as legibility and readability. You know, the spacing is horrible. There's really no rhyme or reason to why the ampersand and the or are not on the same baseline as the rest of the words. You know, this could have just been, why is this T uppercase? I mean, I have so many questions on the sign, like in the person who designed it and then the person who said, yeah, I really like that. Like, let's have that made. It was probably the guy who owns the Fish Factory, and he probably thought this was really cool looking, yet it really hurts our eyes. It's not a good example of typography. Yeah, exactly. It's quite the nightmare. All right. So with that being said, let's hop over into assignment 3, typeface illustrations. So what this means is we are going to be making a face out of type. Please do not use one of the examples on the screen. Please be creative. For time reasons, will be using one of the examples on the screen just to kind of show you how to put something like this together. But please be creative when you are making yours. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger just so you can see a couple of these examples. Like this one with Jay-Z is so crazy. Like when you think about the level of detail that was used. And then even just this one. Like these are definitely more basic, but this is pretty neat right there. So, you know, be creative this week. I shouldn't see, you know, 2 O's and I don't know, a J and a bracket and nothing else and calling it a day. So have fun with this. There's, you know, a few times in life where you get to have a lot of fun with an assignment, and this should be one of those times. So let's take a look at the instructions for this week. All right, assignment 3, type face illustration. Choose a font from the font list that you created in week 1's assignment. So remember how you made those font lists that you talked about? You need to choose a font from that list and then create an illustration of a face using only letters. Consider the personality of the font and try to capture it in the character of this person. And I'm doing air quotes right now around the word person. Is it a man? Is it a woman? Is that person old or young? What kind of personality and attitude would be descriptive of the font you chose? If you'd like to use the font you have researched for your paper, you will have a lot of information to draw from to capture the font's personality. Now we're going to be using Adobe Illustrator for this. It's going to be 8.5 by 11 inches, portrait or landscape, and it will be black and white only, no grayscale and no tints of black. So that means that, I don't know who made that one. I think it's, honestly, that's an example from the internet. Hold on. Jay-Z out of type. Font illustration. There we go. Oh, it's created by Evan Roth. There we go. Oh, and he only used the word Brooklyn in here. So even crazier. Yeah, like very, very original. That's super cool. I'd seen it around a bit, but I never knew the background of it until right now. All right, so the color is going to be, like I said, black and white only, no grayscale, so no tints of black either. It has to be 100% black and white. You know, fonts, you can use a font from your list that you created in week 1, or you can use the font that you talked about in your research paper. Only use one typeface family. However, different styles within that family are allowed. So let's say that you chose Helvetica. You could use Helvetica 95, Helvetica 75, Helvetica 65, Helvetica Narrow, you know, all of the fonts within the Helvetica family, but you couldn't use Helvetica and Times. That's basically what that means. And then the name of the typeface must be displayed. So name your illustration file, DES113. I don't know why this keeps moving on me. DES113, assignment 3, first last here, .ai. So you're going to save a Illustrator version of it, and then you're also going to save it as a PDF when you are finished and ready to submit. If you need to make any revisions, open the native. Why does this keep moving? I can't tell if it's something wrong with my computer or if it's something with Canvas, but it keeps jumping down. I don't know what is going on here. Oh, that's annoying. If you need to make any revisions, open the native Illustrator file and make the revisions there and save. Then do a, good Lord, this is going to drive me bananas. Then do a save as PDF to submit for grading. And then you're going to submit the PDF for grading, but you want to keep your original. I don't know why it keeps jumping all over the screen. You want to keep your original Illustrator file. So make sure you're submitting by the deadline. I give up on this page. Make sure you're submitting by the deadline and everything else. Make sure you read over the rubric. So I'm going to show an example of one of the ones on the screen. It's kind of basic, but like I said, I want to make sure I can also show you the assignment this week. So I'm going to create one of those faces. So new document. I'm going to go to print letter. And I'm going to change this to inches. I hate when it defaults to points. And I only need one artboard, so I'm going to create. There we go. Turn my rulers on. And utilize the whole space. You know, I shouldn't see one small face right here in the middle of your 8.5 by 11. Like, you know, give yourself like a good buffer and everything, but utilize the entire space of your 8.5 by 11. You know, give yourself like some margins. You know, you don't want it to be like exactly up to the edge, but like I said, it shouldn't be one tiny face right here on an 8.5 by 11. So make sure you're using your space appropriately. So I'm going to use the font Futura. I'm going to start off with Futura Bold. I'm going to make a squiggly. I forget what these are called. And also, don't skew your font. That means, you know, don't do this, don't do this. You know, keep your font as it is. If you want to try to scale it proportionally, hold down the Shift key when you scale it. And another tip, after you've made something and you know, okay, like this piece is done, it may be easier for you, rather than having all of these text boxes, so you're not accidentally selecting another piece of text, turn the text to outline when you're done. And, well, what you might want to do then, because I think it'll make it easier on you, make a copy. So hold down Option, and you can kind of make a copy of it over to the side and leave it as text, but then on the screen, turn it to outlines, which is also type, create outlines. That just means that, so that way when you're not trying to select, you know, one letter and it selects a different letter, or, you know, it can get a little bit frustrating when you're trying to do that. Kind of like how it gives you default Lorem Ipsum text now. That never used to do that. I don't know who in Adobe decided that was a good idea, but there's got to be an option to turn that off. Make an O. I don't think I want it to be that bold. So let me try medium. Nope. Oh, let me try heavy. Heavy might be better. Heavy's a little bit less, I find, than bold. So make two eyes, but I'm gonna make them a little bit different in size, so you can kind of get some perspective from them. Maybe. And my guy over here, this is what I meant. So say I'm trying, you know what I mean? It keeps like selecting this one or whatever. Sometimes that can just get annoying. So I like to keep these ones as outlines. C. Oh, literally the C. Maybe maybe a C. Let's try condensed. Do I have a heavy condensed? No, I have a bold condensed. Try that. I'm going to rotate this by hitting R. R is the quick key for rotate, or you can go to Object. Oh, where is it? Transform, rotate, or you can just hit R, the letter R, and hit Enter. And -90, yeah. Got some glasses going on there. And he needs some eyeballs inside of those glasses. So I'm going to do bullet points. Although I guess like I could have done a period too, but bullet points a little bit bigger. 1. This one should be a little bit smaller as well. And this guy should be moved over just a smidge. Excuse me. Turn these to outlines after I make a copy of them. I'm going to make sure that they're centered. Oh, I hate when it does this as well. This is new. What is wrong with my computer today? Oh, I can't get into that. Just have to manually move it back. That made it more of a mess. That looks pretty centered. All right. And he needs a nose. So you can see how it's all starting to come together. I think that's a little too bold though. Maybe light condensed? Maybe medium condensed? There we go. And I need to make a mouth. I'm gonna rotate this just like this. R again is rotate, so I'm rotating it. And a little bit of a grin. A little bit more, there we go. All right, so what haven't I copied? So I need to copy the J, basically all of this. So here's my face. I'm gonna make him a little bit bigger, like I said, to kind of fill that space. Make sure he's nice and centered in the space. Oops. Should probably group them. Command G groups. Or you can go up to Object, Group, or Ungroup. And I'm gonna label it at the bottom. With Futura. Make sure it's nice and, maybe I'll give it a 1/2 inch margin. There we go. And my guy is done. So I'm going to do a file, save as, and remember I need to save it two different ways. I'll put it in my week 3 folder. Copy the naming convention just to make it easier. And I'm going to do, so that's my Illustrator file. Before I save my PDF, I'm going to get rid of this text on the side here. And I'm going to do a file, save as, PDF, same name. And close it. And double check my PDF before I upload it. So it's all black and white. Here's my guy. He's nice and centered. I've got the name. Let's make sure I meet all of the criteria. So submitted by deadline, I followed the submission instructions. I have some quality, I don't know why it's doing this. It's only on this page. It's gotta be something wrong with Canvas. Quality of craftsmanship and creativity, which you will have. I've used Illustrator. It's 8.5 by 11. Color is black and white. It's a font from my list, we'll say, from week 1. I'm pretending that it is. And I've only used one typeface family in my design, and my name of the typeface is displayed. I named it as Futura. So that's what you will submit. You'll go to submit assignment, and you will make sure that you submit that PDF version of it. All right. So making good time, making good time. It's what I like to see out of myself. All right, so let's go back to some common typography problems. So, common problems with text layout. Lines of text that are too long. Your lines of text should be a maximum of 65 to 75 characters, and the reason why is the way our eyes tend to read. Think of a website where the text doesn't resize or become columns, and think of if it ran from literally one edge of your screen all the way to the other end. By the time you got right here, your eyes would already be tired and you would probably be losing your space. And the same can be said for lines of text that are too short. If you're constantly going like boom, 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 boom. Again, your eyes get really tired. So a good rule of thumb is 2 alphabets, they say, which is about 65 to 75 characters. The text is too close to the edge of the page. The space should be greater than the space between the lines of text. So that's why we always say make sure that you give your page a margin. You know, again, if I made this slide, let me see if I can change this just to kind of make a point. Ugh. If my slide was like this, I'm having like technical difficulties with this mouse today. And then I presented like this would be really distracting for you to see like it like way over here. So, you know, don't, no, I can't Command Z it. So don't do that. Hold on. I'll forget to fix this, and then it'll be like this, you know, next time I teach the course, I'll be like, why is this laid out this way? Because I was making a point. So yeah, so text that's way too close to the edge of the page, it's hard to read, it hurts your eyes. Text that is too close to other items such as graphics or pictures. So see right here how close this copy is and how close it is. It's kind of right on the edge of the text right there. So in this instance, you would, you know, these columns of text are actually pretty well aligned. In this instance, you would shrink up this image to fix it. The problem is definitely with the image, not with the text. But again, you know, it's the text that's getting ruined by the picture overlapping it. Text is unreadable over the background. So dark text on a dark background means that there's no contrast. Same as light text over a light background, no contrast, or text over a multicolored background, you know, very difficult to read. So this is very difficult to read, this dark blue over this dark maroon. However, if we lighten up that maroon background, it's much easier to read. Same with this, this white over 30% gray, very difficult to read, but, you know, I can read it at 70% of this maroon. So you want to, you know, zoom out and see if you can read it yourself. You know, sometimes I get up and I actually stand across the room from my design and I try to see what pops out, because the important things should immediately pop out while I'm standing across the room. So that's a good way to check the hierarchy of your design. You know, kind of get up, step back from your computer, you know, put the whole design on the, you know, do like a Command 0 to fit to page, get up and walk, you know, to the other side of the room and see what stands out in your design. That's how you'll be able to tell if you have good hierarchy of information on the page. If you don't be married to a font or to a difficult font, this is extremely difficult to read. And it actually says marriage to a difficult man, but it should be marriage to a difficult font. But don't be married to a difficult font, just like you shouldn't be married to a difficult man, basically. So this font is awful. It's very difficult to read. Bold body text. All right, so we have the same image as before, but this time the body text is bold. Bold body text is actually really difficult to read because it kind of closes up the natural white space between the letters. So it makes it a little bit harder on your eyes to read at a smaller point size. Then we also have all caps for body text. Definitely, it says generally a bad idea, definitely a bad idea. Whoops. This paragraph is way more difficult to read than this paragraph, and that's because of the caps. There's, you know, your eye kind of moves in a certain direction when you are reading, and when everything becomes, you know, bands. These look like bands of black and white lines. You know, again, doing the kind of like squint your eyes and step back. It's difficult to read. Scripted fonts used in all caps. Bad idea. Do not use scripted fonts in all caps. And please do not use brush script for a script font. There's so many well-drawn script fonts, and brush script, sadly, is just not one of them. You know, this is a typography class. I'm going to tell you which fonts I like and don't like. And I definitely don't like brush script. I just think that there are so many better drawn fonts out there in the script family. Scripted fonts, again, used as all caps. Look at this. This is so hard to read. Too much use of handwritten fonts. Again, very difficult to read. And fonts that are distorted. This is a nice font. Don't spoil it by stretching the letters. You know, fonts, I think I've gone over this. You know, fonts are designed a certain way by these, you know, these typography illustrators. Like, there's so much math and precision. So, sorry. Hey, you know, I'm trying. In the long run, it's not just me. If I tell you, I'm just gonna make a blanket statement. If I tell you that I don't like a font that you've chosen, I'm definitely not doing it to be mean. I'm also letting you know that, you know, it out there in the world, when you are doing this job, there are certain fonts that professional graphic designers do not use for certain reasons. So if you do not use those fonts, it will help you to kind of stand, you know, on your own in the crowd, kind of, because it really distinguishes veteran designers from people who are just starting out. And we've all made these mistakes, believe me. There was a time where I remember this. I had to design. It was my first graphic design job. I was still in college. I worked for a local newspaper, and they asked me to make an ad for a it was like a Ford dealership or something. And I was like, yeah, sure, I can totally do this. I'm going to make a car ad. And I chose the font. I still remember this. Isn't that weird? I chose the font, I think it's like Tecton, I believe. Let me pull it up. Which looks like this. Which was clearly not a good choice for a Ford dealership. Like, I basically typeset like Ford in this font, and I put a picture of a truck, and then I put a big burst, and I put the price point in this font, and then I put all of the other text in this font, and they were like, yeah, you know what? Not exactly the look we were going for. Exactly. It was awful. It was awful. It looked awful. And I was like, oh, really? I'm like, because I think this font is cool. And they were like, yeah, it might be cool, but it definitely has its place, and its place is not for a, you know, big pickup truck ad. So, you know what? I was younger. I had just started out, and I was like, oh, so you can't just pick a font because you like the way it looks and you think it looks cool. Like, fonts have a purpose. And I mean, that's how I learned. You know, I learned definitely by doing it wrong. So you know, 20 years later, I would not choose that font for this. I have since, you know, learned from the error of my ways. And one of the, you know, head graphic designers sat down with me and was like, hey, you know what? We're going to redesign this ad together, and I'll kind of show you the feel that we're going for and why we pick what we pick. And he really helped me out. And he was like, you know, a good headline for a truck dealership is, you know, Helvetica 95 italic. He's like, it's really bold. It's like big. It's empowering, you know, we're selling trucks here, you know, that might be a good font for a daycare or something, you know. He's like, and, you know, I really could see the difference when I sat down with him and saw why we chose fonts to do the things that they need to do. And, you know, the same goes with, you know, distorting fonts, everything else. You know, if you need a wide font, find a wide font. Don't stretch Times New Roman to 150% horizontal to make it a wide font. Find a wider font. You have Typekit at your disposal. That's what it's there for. So here's some more fonts that are distorted. So here's the regular version. Here is a true condensed version of it. So let's say Futura and then Futura, like Futura bold and then Futura bold condensed, or when we take regular Futura bold and we try to condense it ourselves. See how it starts to distort and it's not well drawn? You can see that it's thicker right here, thinner right here, whereas on the true condensed, there is a precision to the font the entire way around. The same goes for the regular. And then if it's stretched, see, it starts to get wider right here and skinnier right here, instead of it being a true representation. It should be mathematically the same width all the way around. That's how it was designed. So you're really killing the design when you do this. Vertically stacked text, it only works in limited situations. It's very difficult to read. So definitely not for, you know, lots of body copy. Here's another situation. Fly Webmaster. I had to turn my head to the side to see, you know, just difficult to read. It works better this way, honestly, than this way. First line and indent, that is too large. So this is a pretty large indent right here. I would probably move this about half the size. It should only be 2 EM spaces. EM is a point of measurement, which is the X height, or about the width of the lowercase m. So 1M, 2Ms. So right about here. Inconsistent spacing after paragraphs. So you can see this is a mess, basically. You'd want consistent spacing in your paragraphs. Inconsistent spacing after paragraphs. So these paragraphs are centered, which don't do. The spacing is different between the 3 of them, and then the spacing between the paragraphs is different. So this is just an all-around mess. Right there. Don't do this. Too many effects used on the text. So blur, shading, blends, bevels, embosses, shadows, gradient fills. If you have to alter your text that much to make it stand out, something in your design is not working. I worked with, you know, one of my friends, and one of the things he used to say, because he owned his own graphic design business, and I used to do some freelance work for him, was he always told people, his other designers, you can have one effect. It can either be a drop shadow, or it can be an outline, or it can be a bevel, or it can be an emboss. So I guess choose which one you want. But if I see 2, I'm telling you to get rid of it. And it was true. You shouldn't have all these effects on your fonts. So again, the infamous bevel and emboss with an inner shadow and a drop shadow. We've got this with the outer glow, and this one with a gradient fill and a drop shadow. Just too much going on. Outlined body text, it's just difficult to read. It just gets distracting. And again, you know what? If yellow is not going to work on top of a white background, then choose a different color. Don't outline it in black. That's, you know, it's just not good design choices. Body text is too large. So what looks more professional, the left block of text or the right one? Normally, non-experienced designers, and yes, I did it too, will immediately use a 12-point font for body copy. Smaller or slightly smaller font sizes create a more professional and modern look. Large body copy can be clunky. Think about the font of a children's book. It's usually at 12 point. It's usually kind of clunky. So you can see the difference right here. Widows and orphans at the end of a paragraph. The last lines of paragraphs are called widows if they are particularly short. Orphans are short segments of a paragraph, usually 1 or 2 lines, that are stranded at the bottom or top of a column. I am a lonely orphan, right here. So these are your orphans. The one word at the bottom. This is a widow. One line, which should go with this paragraph down here, but it ended up at the top of this column. So widows versus orphans. I always have to look it up. I don't remember ever which is which. Again, too many effects. So script on a path, unnatural distortion, overused fonts. Comic Sans is an overused font. I do not like Comic Sans either. The only place it has, I think, is if you're doing something for children. It's a very children font. Low contrast. So again, you can barely read that. I'm noticing your comments. All right, so commonly abused terms. Typeface or font. A typeface is the design of the letter forms. A font is the delivery mechanism. I always misuse these words. I would never get on you if you misuse them as well. Character or glyph. Type designers distinguish characters from glyphs in order to comply with Unicode, an international system for identifying all of the world's recognized writing systems. Each glyph is a specific expression of a given character. Roman or Roman. The Roman Empire is a proper noun and thus is capitalized, but we identify Roman letter forms like italic ones in lowercase. An M dash versus an N dash versus a hyphen. So we have a hyphen here, which is the shortest. Then we have an N dash, which is a little bit longer than a hyphen, and then an M dash is the longest. So hyphen, 2 words brought together as a compound, may be written separately, written as one word, or connected by hyphens. For example, 3 modern dictionaries all have the same listings for the following compounds: hairstylist, hair splitter, hair razor. An N dash usually replaces 2 between numbers. So please join us Saturday 1 to 4 p.m. to celebrate our son's birthday. So you would not use a hyphen in this instance. And then my favorite, the New England Patriots beat the Falcons 34-28. The M dash can be used in place of a colon, commas, and parentheses. So I have 2 pets, a dog and a cat, using that dash in place of the colon there. My 2 pets, a dog and a cat, are quite rambunctious. And I was going to tell you that. You know, that shows that the speaker has been interrupted. This is actually bad. Something got messed up here, and the spacing between the lines is horrible right here. So here are your keystrokes, because you'll notice the M dash and the N dash are not on your keyboard. So what you need to do is, to get that M dash, you hold down Shift, Option, and then the hyphen. To get the N dash, it's just Option and the hyphen, and then you would just hit the hyphen key for your standard hyphen, and then a discretionary hyphen, which looks the same to me. You would hit Command and hyphen. Now, quotes are actually, when you hit just, you know, a single quote or a double quote on the keyboard, those quotes that are put into the type are not actually the quotation marks designed by the type designer. So when you are actually designing something and using quotes, you should use the correct keystroke to add those quotes. So I have them all here. Same with the ellipsis. Don't just type 3 dots. You want to use option semicolon. And then there's a couple of other marks here where you can get those by using these key commands. So save this. You'll definitely need this one day. And again, I said that there was a video for you to watch. You guys can watch that on your own. We already did the assignment, so let's take a look at the assessment. So after receiving feedback from your peers in discussion 3, wait a minute, let me go over to the assessment. Right, this changed from the slide. So our assessment 3 is actually typesetting body copy, and I'll fix my slide. Practice your typesetting skills by setting the text from last week's research paper in a 2 or 3 column InDesign document. Use the 19 rules of typography. Remember, we went over that last week in the slideshow. To choose an appropriate typeface, style, size, leading, and tracking. Choose alignment and paragraph breaks that make for a comfortable read. Add a title and paragraph headings, but do not include your references. Use paragraph and character styles in InDesign to ensure that you have a consistent treatment of the text. Watch out for widows, orphans, excessive hyphenations, and rivers in the text, so just long lines of text. Save your InDesign document as an InDesign document and then export it to a PDF. It will be named the same as your InDesign document, but with a PDF as the file type, and you're going to submit both your native InDesign and PDF for grading. Best practice, always keep your native file of your project even after you've saved them to PDF, so you'll need them when you take your portfolio or capstone course. And then, I don't know why it keeps doing this. And then we have the rubric. So my slide is wrong. So I'm going to delete this and I'm going to say, let me copy and paste this in. There we go. All right. And here are 2 good examples, though, of those postcards. I will keep that in there for you guys to just kind of take a look. All right, so because I did not write, obviously, a term paper last week like you guys did, I am going to design something based on an article that I wrote a couple of years ago. And by a couple of years, I believe I wrote this in 2011, possibly. So that was quite a long time ago. But I'm going to use that as my ad copy for setting the body copy. Let's see. So this, you'll notice that there aren't a lot of instructions, but we're going to do an 8.5 by 11, and I don't think it says that here. Let me just look real quick. Right, it doesn't say the size, so we're going to do an 8.5 by 11. That is what your size is going to be. So obviously, you need to watch the live session video to understand, and if I get email saying, but it doesn't say a size, I'll know that you didn't watch the live session video. And I will refer you back to it. So if you're here, then that's why you're here. You should be watching. All right, so I'm going to make a new letter size document. I'm going to go to print and letter. There we go. 1 page. I'm going to keep my margin at a 1/2 inch around. That's a good margin. I would suggest the same for you. And create. There we go. And I'm going to go grab my text file. Open it up. And this is what I'm going to be recreating. This was my article, and then I designed it. And I don't have all of the exact fonts because I did this on a machine from 6 years ago. So there it is. I think this has more text than the original, than the scaled down version, so we'll see. All right, so first thing first, the name of my article was Badvertising 101. And yours would be the name of your font, basically. So I am going to copy and paste my text out of this, but actually what I'm going to do first is my text doesn't match, so I'm going to actually open up my PDF real quick, and I'm going to copy and paste this text just to make my life easier. And oh, geez. That might have been more of a pain in the butt than it should have been. Oh well, at least my line breaks will be there. All right, so I want to kind of start to map out. I'm going to have a 3-column design. So this is the way I personally think about this. I like to, and this might be kind of weird, but this is just how I do it. I like to draw a text box from one margin to the other margin, and then select it with my black arrow key and go up and manually add in 3 columns, just like this. And you'll notice that it gives me some good gutters that I can follow, and then I will grab and drop a ruler at each of those gutters, just like this. And then just delete that text box. So now I can visually see where I'm going to put my 3 columns of text. And I'm going to have a sidebar over here with different information. So really my article is going to run in between these 2 columns, and then if I get to it, you know, we have about an hour, I'll design the sidebar over here. So before I even start adding text to this page, I'm really starting to map out where I want things. So I have a headline, and I probably want my headline to fit in between this area right here. So I'm going to drop a guide at 1.5 inches. And I'll probably float my headline within this area. And then I'd probably, maybe I'll start my body copy around 2 inches. So again, given some good breathing room between where my headline is going to go, where my body copy is going to go. And then I have this other block of text down at the bottom. So I need to think about that too. So right here is 10.5 inches. Maybe I want this to be 2.5 inches high. Let's go up to 7.5 inches. Yeah, I'll try that. I mean, this is, I might end up editing this, but you know, this is my basic layout here. And I'll start to, you know, I'll start to kind of move things around, see how it works. This might be a little bit too much. Maybe I'll go down to 8 inches. And this is just me kind of showing you my thought process of how I start to lay things out. Because I have all this text, and I wish that it wasn't such a mess. And I could see where my line breaks were. All right, there we go. And then I'm probably going to go into, and I would suggest this, go into your Word document and start to add, you know, all right, what's your title? Here's my title. I have a heading here, so I'm going to change the style to heading just so I have a visual of what is body copy and what is, you know, a subheadline, a headline, things of that nature. It'll just make it a little bit easier on you when you're trying to move things over into InDesign. Good grief. View. Zoom. There we go. All right. Whew. Now let me fix this. A mess. And I have a couple of different paragraphs, so I'm trying to separate out my paragraphs. Which you won't have to do, but this in the long run will actually make my life easier when I move this into InDesign. So here's a headline. This is all one line. You will have a time where you will definitely find yourself with information that's been given to you by a client that you're probably going to have to sit there and kind of just look over before you can just start designing, and it will make your life so much easier if you kind of start to put things together before you do all of your designing. There we go. All right, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, there. But I don't know where. Tips. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, all right, all right. Whew. So here is my title, and I'm going to copy and paste my text because I really don't want to be retypesetting things. And you'll notice I'm paying special attention to my columns. So I want my headline to start to run the span of 2 columns. And I want each of my columns of text to stay within these 2 columns right here. So it's going to be a 3-column design because I'm going to have another section over here that kind of stands alone. So that's where my thinking is regarding this. And I'm going to pull out my character palette and pull out my paragraph palette together. So for my headline, I'm choosing a font, it's not from Typekit, called Bebus. And I'm specifically using fonts that you probably don't have because that way no one will be doing the same exact design as me. Does that make, I hope that makes sense because you know, you guys need to be using fonts in Typekit, and I'm specifically choosing fonts that I don't think that these fonts are even on Typekit. One of them might be. I think this sneaker font is. So I'm going to design my 101. and make sure everything is right within, right to my margins. And you'll notice the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to design this whole thing in black and white. I'm going to be adding my color later. I want to make sure that this works in black and white before I start to think about different font colors. So I'm going to start to rotate this. 15. And I'm going to draw a box. So the rectangle tool is M. Give that box a border. Nah. Make that 15. Through this, and I'm going to make this smaller. Because again, here's my, let me zoom in. Here's my guide that I'm trying to leave this gutter open. So I might need to make advertising a little bit smaller. Maybe 63 point type. There we go. And I wanted it to stay within this. Come on. Being aware of my margins. This needs to be a little smaller. Moved over a smidge. And being aware of the kerning in this. This is a very tall font. But it's very well spaced, I will say. So that looks good. All right. All right, so then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy and paste all of my text into the document together into 2 text boxes. So I'm going to draw a text box, again, being aware of my guides that I've set up for myself. One here, and draw another one right here. And I'm going to put my cursor back in this one. I'm going to go over into my Word document and grab right to here. Copy that and paste. And, oh, I know why I did that. Hold on, delete these. I'm going to show you a trick, which I was not paying attention to. All right, if you are not on the type tool, let's say that you are on the direct selection tool, and you go to character, and you know there's going to be a font that you are going to use a lot on your page in InDesign. Like, I'm going to use the font Agenda multiple times. Agenda Medium to be exact. Probably 10 point type. So if I set that font before I draw my text box, that's going to be the default font for this document every time I draw a new text box. So that's just a little trick. But we're actually going to be using character styles, so I need to open those up. Those are going to be located under Window, Styles, Character Styles. And I'll show you how to set these, but I kind of need to bring over my text first. I just noticed that I had added that sneaker font, and it defaulted that to be my default font in my text boxes, and that was a horrible idea. So let me draw my 2 text boxes again. There we go. And paste it in. All right, so you will notice when I pasted this text right down, you can kind of see that there is a red box right here with the plus sign. What that means is that there's an overflow of text that is running, you know, the rest of my text is running somewhere outside of this text box. So I need to either open up this text box, or what I can do is I can, with my direct selection tool, click on the plus sign, and it's going to give me, let me zoom in. Where's it with the text tool? Oh, come on. Know what it is? Hold on. View. Guides. Lock guides. There we go. All right. We're selecting the guides. So click on. There we go. Click on the plus sign. And you see how it gives me this lock and it shows like some text. Once I click into that second text box that I drew, it's going to overflow that text for me into this text box, which takes care of my whole problem of my overrun text, and it keeps everything consistent. So let's say if I select everything, it selects all the text in both text boxes. So now I can make the font bigger, the font smaller. I can change, you know, the leading, things like that all together. I can keep everything consistent. I don't need to go through and select multiple text boxes. So if I think that this is a good font size for this, which I'm not 100% on. Let me try 11 point. 11 point looks pretty good for this body copy. So if I think that I've kind of figured out the font size that I want for my body copy, I'm going to set it as a style. So I'm going to click on Character Styles, and I'm going to click on Create New Style, which is this icon for a new piece of paper, and it's going to name it Character Style 1. So what you're going to do is double click, and I'm going to call this body copy, because you should have them named logically, so when you're looking through your character styles, you can go, oh, all right, that's my body copy. And it'll say based on none at this point, but it shows you the settings. So agenda is my font, medium, size 11, and my leading is 12 point. I'm going to hit OK. So I have my first character style created. So this is going to help me with consistency. If I know that I want all of my body copy on this page to match this criteria, I just need to select it and hit body copy, and it's going to change. Like, let's say I accidentally changed this to 18 point type, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a disaster. What do I do? Select the whole box, hit body copy, and it changes it back. Or just select the text and hit body copy and it changes it back. So I have in my Word file two kind of sub-headlines in a way, because I consider this to be my main headline. So these are probably my sub-headlines. But I want to use the same exact font, this Bebas New, as my sub-headline font, but I obviously don't want it to be this big. So I'm going to select the first one, white space. I'm going to change the font to that Bebas New. And you'll notice it's such a smaller font than the agenda font. So I'm really going to need to start, you know, making it a little bit bigger here. Maybe 20 point type. I obviously need to adjust this. 28/34. Maybe 26. So all right, so that works at 26 point type. So I'm going to name it as a character style. I'm not sold on it 100%. I'm going to create a new style. I'm going to name it, whoops. I'm going to name it sub-headline. Hit OK. And I'm going to try it out over here on this. Nobody is going to read all this. And 34 is a little bit too big for the lettering. So I'm gonna close that up a bit to 20, 26 over 26 really works. So I'm gonna double click on this. And I'm gonna change the leading to 26 over 26 for the whole style. So that kind of works, but I definitely need some spacing in between my different paragraphs here. There's just, everything's too close at this point. We'll get rid of this return and get rid of this extra return. There we go. I'll close this up a bit. So I'm going to select the whole text box, and I'm going to add in under paragraph some spacing. So let's see. Now I definitely want to make sure that this line goes to the top, or I get 2 lines of text down here. It's either or at this point. I'm going to try to bump it up to the top. Oops. There's 2 ways I can do that. I can either hit a return, or what I can do is just close up this one text box and it'll bump it up to the top. So we'll try that. And you know, I don't know about the size of this font. I feel like it might, 11 point type might be a little bit too big. So I'm going to go over to character style. I'm going to double click on body copy. I'm going to go to basic character formats. I'm going to change it to 10 and hit OK, and I'm going to have a look. So 10 kind of works, and then it gives me a couple of lines here too. I think 10 might work. Yeah, 10 might work. This text box was a little too wide. Make sure the width is consistent on my 2 text boxes. All right, so I've got this information in here, and I want to double check, you know, my hyphens. Do I have too many? There's a couple, but I might, you know, might try to check, add some tracking, maybe -4. That didn't really do it, so try down here and see if adding a little bit. I don't like to go past -4 or -5 for tracking. And that just kind of squished it up, but it didn't really do anything. So I'm just going to leave it as is. All right, next I had Shannon is an experienced graphic designer with lots of design horror stories. Visit her online. So I'm going to copy this information. And it's going to go down here, but I want it to be separate from my body copy. So I'm going to close up this text box. I'm going to make a new text box. And I'm just going to place that information right now. And I'm just going to quickly give it the body copy character style, but I might change that. Then I have these 4 tips, basically. So I'm gonna copy that, and that's gonna run down here. And I'm actually going to run this information. I'm gonna span both columns with this information. So just for right now, I'm going to just draw one text box and drop it in. And I'm just going to give it the body copy treatment. But again, this will probably change as well, because I actually have a lot more text in here than I need. I'm probably going to take out some text. You guys don't need to take out text. I just don't have the right ad copy, basically. And then I have my sidebar information, which is this tips. Copy that. And again, I'm going to draw. This is going to span the whole sidebar right here. So I'm going to draw one big text box and dump that in here. And I'll just rename it with body copy for now. And I'm going to clean up because, as you can see, I have our overrun. That's because I have too much. Picture. Let me just remove this. I'm just going to have it say a nice color photo. There. All right. There we go. All right. So I have all of my ad copy on the page right now, but I haven't really, other than kind of deciding my headline area, I haven't really designed this yet. You know, I've kind of figured out some of my fonts and some of my subheadlines, but there's still some more that I can do with the text. It doesn't have my name on it, so I'm going to add my name up here because I have a lot of room up here. So I'm going to center it. And I'm going to put the name of my business. So that's going to go right here. And I'm probably going to design something in this space, which means I'm going to move this text box up to be level with it, with this space right here. That gives me, I'm going to close this up a little bit to 2 lines. So I'm just starting to really look at my layout here. And then I can design something for this right in this area. All right. So let's see. I'm going to make a box, so just a rectangle. Runs right here. And where are my colors? Pull out my swatches. I'm going to make this black, and I'm going to send it to the back. So I can do object, arrange, send to back, or I can use the quick key, which means that this text needs to be white on top of it, so it's readable. And I'm going to make a little, kind of a little doohickey on the top. I'm going to draw a square, and I'm holding down Shift, make this black, and I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees. And bring it down here. Select both of these. And center them. And again, I gotta bring this text box up to the front. I'll hide the frame edges so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And I'm gonna make my name bold. I know there's a bold version of you. Where are you? Agenda. Bold. There we go. And I'm going to make the name of my business italic. Not bold italic, just italic. If I have a version of this. There we go. I want to make sure it's visually centered in the space. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And this I'm not giving a character style because it kind of stands alone on its own. My name, it's not like anywhere else in the design is going to have my name per se, but I do need some, I do need some colors. So I'm going to go over into Adobe Color. I'm going to make myself a color scheme for this page. Make sure I'm signed in. I actually like this orange, so I'm going to keep this orange. Might make it a little bit darker though. There we go. Orange. Make this blue a little bit lighter. Like that color. I want like a gray. Good gray. That's good. And I like this yellow. That kind of goes well with the orange. And this is pretty much white. I just changed that to a 5. All right. All right, so this is a good color scheme for a quick one. I'm going to name this advertising. Save it. And go back into InDesign, and I need to pull up my CC libraries and my color schemes. And here's my advertising color scheme. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to add my theme to my swatches. And it's going to add them as RGB. So I need to hold down Shift and select all of them and hit enter or double click. Whoops. Oh, come on. And I need to change the color mode from RGB, scroll up and change it to CMYK and hit OK. And you'll notice that changes them all to CMYK. So I'm going to change advertising to orange. I'll leave 101 as the black. White space, maybe I'll make that. Make that orange too. There we go. Oh, and I said I was going to do something with this text. This is a little bit about me. So I'm going to select this. Where's that medium italic? There we go. Close this up. And make this smaller. This needs to be a little bit smaller. And I'll just bold italic this. There we go. And I'm going to kind of center it in the space. I'm just going to visually, oops, create a bracket. That this will sit in. I don't remember if medium is the lightest I have. Medium is the lightest I have on this. All right, so maybe this bracket will be in a medium gray. And this font too. I'm gonna make this font that gray. So it kind of just stands alone. Make a copy of this bracket. And it's okay that the brackets are kind of running into my column area, because honestly, they're kind of their own design element. They're not really my text. So I'm kind of breaking my own rules, but it's okay. And you'll notice I have them lined up with the same amount of space. Come on. I want to get that line right. There we go. Same amount of space. Getting crazy here. All right, so then I'm going to start to put this information into a box as well, because I want it to stand out again from my body copy. You know, you can see where I'm starting to design my text here. So maybe this is in a box, a light blue box. And I'm going to send this to the back. So again, object, arrange, or if you know the quick keys, you can just send it to the back. And I don't want this text running right to the edges. I need to give this some breathing room. And I'm also I'm gonna lose these numbers actually. I'm gonna treat the text a little bit different instead of numbering these items. And I might need to break this up into separate text boxes. Might make my life easier. Yeah, that will make my life easier. So I'm going to lose my M dash, and I'm going to take out the word logo. And add that here. But I definitely know that this runs with this line. Maybe, I'm kind of designing on the fly here. I'm gonna lose I know I'm gonna lose the M dash for sure, but I definitely want logo to stand out by itself. And it's not really a sub headline, but it's kind of like a sub headline. So I'm gonna make it bold italic, and I think I'm gonna make it all caps, which is the double T's. But I think I'm gonna keep it the same size, but I want to put it in a reverse box. So I'm going to make it white. It's going to be the only part that's white. It's going to be in a different reverse box. But I want to do this for all of these sub headlines. So I'm going to make a character style of this. I'm going to call it sub headline, just because I know what that means. So I'm going to get rid of my M dash here. This one's going to be sub headline, sub headline, and sub headline. There we go. And again, I need to kind of separate out these items. They're a little bit close. So I'm going to use the paragraph tool. I'm going to add some spacing in between paragraphs of 0.0625. That kind of looks good. And maybe extend this out a little bit more. Make sure it's centered inside this box. It's my alignment tool. I want to kind of vertically center it too. So I'm going to manually do that. And I want to get this onto one line. This is horrible right there. So let me see if I can extend it enough to get this all on one line. I can, and I can probably just manipulate the tracking a little bit. I'm going to make it -4. And fix. I'm going to hit Shift Enter, not Enter, because see how it adds that space, but if I hit Shift Enter, it'll move that to the next line without adding that space, the paragraph space in. And I can probably add a little bit more paragraph space. So I've got all this room. There we go. All right, that looks good. And I had said that I wanted to reverse this information. So I'm going to grab, whoops, nope, swatches, and I closed it. I think I'll probably go with black, honestly. So I'm going to draw a box, make the box black, and then bring my text box to the front. And I'm going to make a copy of this box because I want they're going to need to be a different length, but I want them to be consistently the same height. So with this box selected, I'm going to hold the Option tool and then start to drag, and then hold Shift as I start to drag until I get it to where I want it to be right here. Let go. Grab it again, Option tool, and hold down Shift as I drag it. bump that up just a bit, just a smidge. And the last one. There we go. Now I can manually extend them, but I know they're all the same height. I just want to be aware that I'm not running too close to the letter Y here. So I'm going to have to manually add in with my kerning. Change that to 0. Just kind of space, add a space here. Do the same thing here. Space. And space. And this one looks okay. So now this starts to stand out. But I feel like this information needs a headline. So I'm going to add a headline. Whoops. I'm going to call it, let's keep it simple. So I want to select all of this, but I don't want to select this box. So my easiest way to do that is I'm going to click out here, drag a marquee over this. While holding down Shift, I'm going to deselect this blue background box, and then I can just move this down, and I can add my headline in here. And I want my headline to be the same size as my subheadlines up here. I want it to be the exact same. And I kind of want all of these subheadlines to be this color, so I'm going to go into the character style, and I am going to change that under character color. I'm going to select that orange for the character color and hit OK. And I'm going to draw a text box. And I want to align this text box right here with this one. So I'm going to select either these two text boxes and left align it, or what I can do is, let me turn on the frame images again so you can see. So here's that new text box I drew. So I could either select both of these text boxes holding down Shift and go to align and left align it, or I can look at this one and say, all right, the X coordinate is 0.58 and change my X coordinate on this one to 0.58. Either way, it does the same thing. And I said that I was going to do, let's keep it simple. All right. And this is a subheadline. There we go. And orange doesn't work for this. So I have one of two options. I can either change my background color or I can change my font color. And if I want to keep my design simple, I should probably change my background color, honestly. So let's see what I've got here. Maybe that yellow, but not 100%. So I'm going to change the opacity of that yellow. I can either change it literally the opacity of the box, or I can change the tint of the color. So either way, I'll change the tint of the color. Let me try it at 50%. So the orange I can kind of stands out. I can definitely tell it's a bit different, and I need to extend this box up just a little bit, which is fine. I'm going outside of my rule, but I have enough space here. There we go. All right, that looks good. So it's all starting to come together. So I've got 15 minutes left. Basically, for this one, I would start to, you know, change the sidebar the same way I've designed, you know, this section. So I'll probably just do this real quick and you can kind of watch me do it. I'm not going to give as much of a commentary on this one. So for this one, I'm going to center it. I'm going to make this a subheadline. I'm going to change the font color to blue. I'm probably going to make this a little bit bigger. This needs to stand out a little. And I'm going to drop this box down a bit. And I'm actually going to change the width of it a bit. I'm going to make it 2.2 because I'm going to put this all inside of a box, right inside of a border here. Whoops. Maybe an orange border. We'll see. And I want to align the stroke on the inside because, all right, because when you align it on the outside, see how it's running outside my margin? But if I align, watch it, here's my margin, this pink line. But if I line the stroke, under stroke, to the inside, it keeps it within my margin. It's just a little bit neater if you do something like that. I'm going to center this. All right. And I definitely need some paragraph spacing. This is more of a subheadline, so is it a subheadline or a sub-subheadline? Let's see. No, that was subheadline. I'm going to center this as well. And I want free to stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to change the font. And move this to the next line. And maybe make free a little bit bigger. And move this line down. You'll notice it's lined up right with the top of this line. So I get that nice, clean consistency right across. See? There we go. I'm always keeping, you know, look where my rules are and, you know, keeping my design nice and neat. I'm going to do something funky with these numbers. Let's see if I get this all done in the next 10 minutes. All right. Like I said, I'm just designing this real quick. All right, so I've got one. I'm gonna remove this. We're gonna do that same font is free, so that Bevan font. And I'm gonna move it over. Manually move just this line over. I'm gonna remove the dot, and I'm gonna say, oops. I'm gonna say nothing, because why aren't you typing? Oh, jeez. What's going on here? Oh, all right. And do this. All right. And I'll just make a copy of this. Do it for all the numbers. 2. Move it up. Don't know why I didn't shift this one over. All right, that one does. All right, 4. And 5. All right, so I've got my tips. And probably put something down here. Be aware of my hyphens. And logical line breaks. Looks good. I'm gonna save it, save my InDesign file. Again, week 3, make those weeks. I'll just put it in here. Make sure I'm naming it correctly. And exporting it. And I will double check my PDF before I submit it. And there it is. All right, so it's 7 minutes to spare. So that is how you will create, you know, kind of a good example of how you can start to lay out your assignment that you wrote. What would be, you know, I personally, if I wrote about Helvetica, I would probably choose the font Helvetica to design my stuff this week. Same with if I use Times New Roman, I would use that as at least the body copy font. You know, so you should really think of using the font that you wrote about in your design. You know, be very meta of you to do it that way. So, you know, make good design choices this week. If you want someone to take a look at your designs, I suggest popping into the Student Success Center and asking them for their opinion or to give you a critique. Even if you want to post in the discussion this week, you know, your design for your assessment and say, hey, does somebody just mind taking a look at this? I know we're looking at all of our stuff from last week. Does anybody mind taking a look at my stuff for this week and giving me some thoughts? I'm completely okay with that. And have fun with it. Definitely have fun with your designs. Make sure that you're uploading everything on time. And again, if you haven't gotten that work in from last week, you really need to have last week's work done in order to do the majority of your assignments this week. the discussion and the assessment. So that would be 110 points right there if you weren't able to do either of these because you didn't do the work from last week. So make sure you're trying to get that in. All right, this is where I am going to leave you. If anybody has any questions or concerns, I will be in the multi-session tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. And wish me luck, fingers crossed that we don't get hit by this hurricane tomorrow night. And again, if there is a problem with inclement weather, I will try to post an announcement from my cell phone. All right, I hope everybody has a good rest of your week. And if you have any questions, you can always email me. All right, have a great night.